Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for Assimilate Inc. And I'm back with part 2 of our look at Burnin inside of Assimilate Scratch. And in this lesson, I'm going to focus on two things. One, getting in and creating Burnin presets. Why presets? Well, obviously presets are going to help us speed up our overall workflow, because as great and as in-depth as the Burnin node is inside of Scratch, obviously creating those burn-ins can take a little while. Having those presets is going to be super helpful. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we can then get in and apply that burn-in directly to the dual head monitor, bypassing your Scratch application or your Scratch interface altogether, so you can continue doing work without having to worry about constantly putting burn-in on the screen for the client. It will always be there for them. Alright, and as you can see, we are in the render module of Scratch. I do have a burn-in node on my footage here. Let's just come in and, of course, call it appropriately enough burn-in, just so we can see that visually on our node. Now, what is the problem with our workflow up till this point? Well, nothing's really the problem with our workflow, but I'll say the problem in air quotes is that every time we've had to get in and to create burn-in, we've had to do it manually. So when I got in and created this, this is a good, 2 or 3 minute task. And maybe I might want to have, 4, 5, 6 different burn-in layouts depending on what type of job I'm working on. So what would be ideal is if I could get in and create some presets. And on the flip side of that, hypothetically, if I happen to have a producer or director sitting beside me, whether I'm in the edit suite or whether I'm on location, ideally I don't want to be going back and forth between burn-in nodes. What I'd really like to do is to just be able to project all of that metadata information in our burn-in out through our secondary monitor without having to do it as a node. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that in this lesson. But first of all, let's talk about saving presets. Now, one thing that I am going to do here is I'm just going to switch over into the full Scratch, full finished tool set. And the reason that I've done that is because if I have everything set up like this, you'll see that we can get in and save. It's just a matter of trying to find what we're looking for. So this is why when we're working in our dailies workflow, you'll see a lot of that extra information that we don't need for this workflow is taken away. Very easy to see, load, save, and fetch down here at the bottom of the screen. Obviously, keep in mind, it is there for the full workflow as well. So let's come in, let's save this as a template. What we're going to do is navigate down to save. I'm going to just hide out of Scratch for 1 second, and I'm just going to create a new folder on the desktop. We're just going to call this Burn in Presets. And once we have our folder, let's get back into Scratch. We're just going to save this. I'll head to the desktop into the Burn in Presets. And I'm just going to call this KPM Master Preset number 1. And I'm going to say save. Now, keep in mind, we could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 different burn-in presets. Obviously, you want to name them specifically what they are, not just Kevin's awesome burn-in, because to be honest, all of my burn-ins are awesome, and it would be hard to differentiate between any of them. So let's head back to the render module here for just 1 second, and let's delete that burn-in. So hypothetically, we have a new project that we're working on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add a new burn-in node, just like we always do. I'm going to step into the burn-in node from here, and what I'm going to do is simply navigate down to the load option. Let's load in. We're going to head to the desktop. We're going to head to our burn-in presets. That preset for my master preset, all I'm going to now do is simply come down, say open. There's all of my burn-in information all set to go at the snap of a finger without me having to get in and recreate anything. Now, if you take a look at the metadata information I've included in here, I've even included the circle take that you can see if we head on over here to the metadata window has been turned on. All right, so we'll just add that in there just for a little bit of extra fun. Now, let's talk about exporting this information to our external monitor. Now, I have an external monitor sitting beside me. Obviously, you have to take my word for that, but you won't have to take my word for it in just a second when I take a snapshot of what's going to be going on our external monitor, and I will post it on the screen for you to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to the render module, and I'm going to delete the burn-in node. Now, by doing that, obviously we now have no burn-in. And again, the situation that I gave you earlier was that we might have a client sitting in beside us or a producer director, And ideally, I don't want to be going and adding the Burnin node as I'm going through stuff. I'd really rather just project that information out onto the external monitor for them to see anytime that they need to see it. So how do we go about doing this? Well, you might think that what we would do is we would go into our settings and we'd come to the monitor parameter, and over here you'll see that we have our dual head monitor parameters. You'll see we can get in, change color spaces, apply them, apply lookup tables. We can even enable or disable that from right here. But you'll notice down here at the bottom we have some parameters that are grayed out. So how do we go about ungraying them, we'll just say, or making them available to us to work with? Well, let me show you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to close out of this project and we're going to head to our system settings and we're going to make sure we are in our custom commands. Now, what's very cool about what I'm about to show you is that it works not only with Burnin, but it actually works with plugins as well. We have the ability to add a plugin to the footage that we're sending out to our external monitor without having to get in and actually apply the plugin itself. So how do we go about doing this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come down, we're going to add a new command. Let's call this command, appropriately enough, Burnin. And where you know it's important because I'm typing it in all capital letters. Now, what type of custom command is this? Well, this is going to be a plugin. Now keep in mind, the Burnin is still a plugin. If we were to head into our plugins folder, we would find it in there. So what we need to do is we just need to tell Scratch that that is the plugin that we're going to be using. And as you can see, it is right here. And I'm going to say select. Now that's great and everything, but unless we actually tell Scratch what we want this preset to be, we're not going to be able to get in and to work with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to the desktop. I'm going to choose that master preset here. I'm going to say open, and keep in mind, I could have multiple Burnin plugins all set up in here at the same time so that we can activate them, head back into our Scratch interface, and then turn them on and off as necessary. You'll see I'm going to use on dual head, which I will enable, so it is now turned on. And all we're going to now do is say okay, and let's head back into our project. Once I do that, what we're going to do is head to color effects. I'm going to hit F5 again to call up our settings. Once our settings are called up here, let's just make sure, there we go, perfect. Let's hit F5. We're in our monitor setup. Now, let me just make sure that we are zoomed back. That's fine. You'll now see over here that effect is no longer disabled. I can now drop that down. And the only one that I've created so far is Burnin. I could call this Burnin Master. I could call it Burnin, whatever I want to call it. All I'm going to do is simply turn it on, and you don't see it on the screen in front of you. However, on my client screen to my left here, if you take a look on the screen, I've posted a still frame of it. We can now see all of that Burnin information. I can go on, I can keep doing color, I can prep anything that I need to prep, all while the client sees the information that you want them to see. All right, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Now, I want to remind you we were working in Scratch 9.1, and if you need more information about this release, you can check out the link you see on the screen right now, and don't worry, we've included it in the notes below this tutorial so you can get there lightning fast. And don't forget, for everything Scratch and Assimilate related, you can check us out on the web at www.assimilateinc.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.